Hello, welcome to my channel. On today's video, we're going to start changing out the transmission pan gasket. I got under there and it was leaking. Also, there's a lot of leaks in this car, so I'm going to just be redoing a lot of them. Anyhow, that's where I'm going to move over to, and I've already released the drain. I lifted the car up so the car's on jack stands, and then I've removed the drain plug, and so right now all the oil is just draining, and I'm going to let that sit for quite some time because when you do that and you remove the pan, there's still oil that's coming down. So I really wanted to drain as much as possible.
So here is the drain pan all filled with oil, and then there it is, just a few drips still. This gasket, I don't know if you can see it very well, it's like that cork type gasket, and those gaskets are, I've always had issues with them. To the point where I never install them anymore. So it was leaking from up here. I don't know if you can see those bolts, they were wet at one point, kind of wiped them down. I'm really hoping that there's no leak where the transmission and the engine connect. So I'm hoping that anything that's going on is just because of the gaskets used on the pans, and or other simple things that I can access that are not going to require a lot of crazy replacing and removing and uninstalling of parts. So there's also a gasket that goes in here. I believe there's like an O-ring that goes in there, but it's pretty common for these transmissions to leak from there. But I'm seeing this pretty clean, so I think we're okay there. On the other side, there is an inlet, and I'll show it when I go to the other side, that I'm questioning a little bit. I do believe that's just the inlet that brings fluid back into the transmission. And so that one, there's probably an O-ring or something in there, so I'm a little concerned there. But for the most part, the biggest thing that I want to tackle is I need to get rid of that gasket. All right, so I've drained the oil pan, and there was no metal shavings, so I think the car god's on that. Now, I am in the process of removing these bolts that hold the, let me see if I can't really get down too far because again, this car can't go up too high based on how this was set up. So anyhow, I need to just remove these bolts that go all the way around the pan. They will let the pan free. However, one thing I was noticing is that these bolts are like ridiculously like that. I probably could have broken that loose just by twisting it, actually. So maybe it wasn't that the gasket was failing, maybe it's just that these weren't torqued down to the right spec or actually even tightened at all. But regardless of, I don't trust that type of gasket, so I will be replacing it.
I pulled it out. Luckily, the gasket came off with it, and fairly easy to rip off. There wasn't really any residue left on the pan. I've kind of ran a magnet through here to see if there's any metal shavings or anything like that. I only found two little pieces. There is this sludge, so two tiny little pieces, and so I'm going to assume that hopefully nothing's burnt in here, and this is just the oil's just been in there for a very long time. The oil didn't smell burnt, so I'm going to just kind of go with that assumption. I'm going to clean out this pan real fast, and then I shall be looking at what gasket I'm going to use to install it back under there. Diesel has become my best friend. I've been cleaning a lot of parts with it, so it's all shiny and stuff.
Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to be removing that filter right there, that little like thin square thing that you see. I kind of, because I found those two pieces of metal shavings in the oil, now I'm a little concerned, and so I want to inspect the filter. I was going to replace it anyway. However, I just want to make sure I'm not doing a dumb thing here, and there's not other stuff going on with this that I'm not really taking into consideration. There's 2 flathead screws and those 2 indents that you see. Let me see if I can get in there. These 2. Once I released them, some oil came out from there, and quite a bit of oil actually came down. So I'm really hoping that that filter was not clogged. Okay, so I'm not making this up. There's this sticker right here that says made in China or something like that, and parts of it are shredded. I don't know what that is. It's probably like the gunk that was on the sticker or something. And then I did find 3 tiny shavings right here, but all this seems to just be like dirt or stuff from this. I don't know. So I'm starting to get kind of, luckily this probably wasn't driven very much, and again, this filter caught it, but I swear there was a staple in my differential, and then after inspecting the differential, something had to have been left in there. Like, no bolts were loose, no bearings were shot, everything looked intact except the posi. I didn't check the posi to see if something had broken there, but it almost seems like the original owner was old. So who knows if like their mechanic or their shop that they were taking this car to get things done to was sabotaging the car. But because yeah, this is just a little strange. I would not have planted this for views or anything like that. I don't really, you know, I'm just doing this as like, I'm just kind of showing what I'm doing to get this car going, like 100%, because it did have a lot of leaks, and luckily it has a lot of leaks. I'm having to check everything because of the leaks that are there, and I'm finding all this stuff. Had I not had the leaks and I just ran it, this stuff would eventually cause serious issues.
Technically, I guess this guy was older, and so maybe he was just, with the day I went to pick up the vehicle, he had lost the keys. He had forgot where he had placed them. So could have been that maybe he was the one that actually was probably doing the work on these, and he just forgot things, because again, the pan wasn't really torqued down. There was only like maybe like 3 out of the, I think it's got 12, or maybe it's 10. Anyway, there was really only around 3 bolts tightened. All the other ones were, you know, maybe 10 inch-pounds torqued down. So yeah, I don't know what's going on, but no point in dwelling on that. I already have the car, so at this point it's now my problem with whatever situations come up on it. For now, I'm going to come up with a plan, and I'm going to make these changes here so we can stop the leaks, but also I kind of want to put something there to run the car for a little while, and then go back to it and check to see if there's like anything concerning in that oil pan after I've driven it for, you know, maybe let's say I put in 100 miles on it or something like that.
What I'm doing right now is I'm just scrubbing the edges of basically the face of where the pan would sit flush against here, or the gasket. I want to make sure all this stuff is kind of removed to make sure that the seal is actually a really clean seal. And actually, I think it's just my scrubbing pad that's making that dirty, so I'll have to wipe that down soon. When you're under here, don't forget this gasket right here. I have left it on, so I know exactly how to put the other one on because I'm not familiar with this transmission and also the parts that were coming off of it. So, but I will be removing that little gasket. It's just simply stuck on there. I will be removing that before I put the new one on.
Okay, so this is the new part that's gonna go in. I've kind of just put it together as to how it's supposed to go in there. And because of the way that that gasket is set underneath there right now and it's not been removed, it gives me an idea as to how this needs to go back up. Because this is pretty symmetrical, so there's not like really a, yeah, I could go under there and mess around with the screw holes and keep looking until they kind of lined up, but it was just much easier to kind of already know and how to expect for this to go up. Just kind of got it from my local parts store. The reason I kind of favor this one over the other ones is because the gasket is rubber, and I have a lot more faith in these type of gaskets than I do in the cork one that was on here. After doing some research, I think that the small metal shavings that I found aren't anything to be concerned about. Everything that I read online about this transmission is stating that it's kind of common, and then the sludge that was under here, I guess that's also common as well. So unless like there's a lot of flakes or something like that, then you kind of have to be a little more you kind of have to do a little more digging in there, and maybe the transmission is shot at that point. But for now, it doesn't seem like there's anything of major concern. One thing I've put here is this magnet, and I'm debating whether it's actually going to go in the pan or outside. The reason for it is because this magnet's a little thick, and I don't know if it allows the clearance still down there. But this should definitely have a magnet in here. Those 5-6 pieces that I found that were metal shavings, this would have caught it. However, yeah, so right now I have to figure this out. But for now, I'm going to try to see if I can get the filter up there. Okay, so there it is. The trick to getting this filter up, it seems like I had to just kind of put both of my fingers up here, and then with this one I was holding this screw in, and then with this one I was tightening it. Obviously the gasket was inside already, or where it needed to go, and it was held in place by the screws. So, you know, once I tightened one, then I was able to move to the other one, and then finally it just takes one of these screwdrivers, a flathead, and to tighten it down. After going back and forth, I think I'm overthinking this, so I'm putting the magnet right here, and I'll kind of show where that's going to end up under the transmission. But here, right now, to hold this gasket in place, I've ran some screws up from the bottom, and these are just kind of like on the corners. So because the gasket is rubber, the holes are just a little bit smaller, and they're small enough to hold the screw in place. So this is kind of what I got set up, so I'm just going to kind of put it under there. But first, let me show you where this is going. So once it's under here, it should end up right around this area. So if we look at this kind of lower here, so it should sit right around here. I've considered going right in here where there's this kind of gap. Let's see if I can get under there. So there's kind of this gap right here. I thought about it there, but this right here, I don't know how far this moves, and I don't know how far this moves. Obviously they're not going to move lower than the filter, but still, I just kind of feel weird about it going there. The drain plug sits about like right here somewhere. So if I put it too far forward, I'm worried that it'll hit the filter. If I put it too far back, I'm worried that it'll kind of catch maybe on these screws, because it starts kind of slanting upward back here. And so, yeah, well, I'm just gonna go with the magnet sitting right here in this corner next to the dipstick. All right, so I've gotten the pan up, and the bolts are somewhat tight. You can still kind of see a gap if in here, so it's not all the way pressed in. I just wanted to get every bolt in, except these were somewhat difficult. This one and the one over here. There's a spacer, and let me see if I can kind of show it. That spacer that you kind of see in between the pan and it won't focus. Let me try to get, there we go. So that spacer in between the pan and the bracket here, so this bracket, that one was a little difficult to put in. There's two of them. One goes up back here. Let me just come back. One's on the other side of this bolt. So getting those two in there was a little bit of a challenge, but other than that, the pan went up fairly easily. So right now it's just a matter of torquing all these bolts down. So I have it all torqued. The pan's all torqued down and everything like that. It just needs the drain plug back in there. And I've decided to put a little bit of RTV. And the reason for it was because I don't know if this crush washer is really doing it anymore. When I was under there, it did have a little bit of leaking. Now, it could have not been tightened down right or properly, and so maybe that's why it was leaking, but I'd rather just not deal with the possibilities of having to pull this off again. So instead, I'm just going to put this on there and screw it back in there.
Okay, in she goes.
All right, so the pan's back on. It's torqued. I found the torque specs online. It was between 12 and 13, so I actually put them like around 12 and a half-ish foot-pounds of torque. And then I got the drain plug put in, like as I mentioned. Uh, what I need to figure out is how many quarts it takes. I've looked online and there's different, everyone's kind of saying something different. As far as the oil that it takes, it's pretty common, like Dextron. So I don't, I think that's how you say it. I don't, I'm not worried about that. And then it's just a matter of figuring out how many quarts. I don't have any oil here, so I'm going to have to run to the store tomorrow morning. It's already pretty late now. And then I'm moving up even more to the front of the car. So for now, I'm just going to call this video good. I was going to call it good there, but I just decided to do the quick research, and I have discovered that TCI recommends 4 quarts of oil, and then the thing with that is that when I drained it, it had 6 quarts of oil. So from my understanding, the 4 quarts is if it has the OEM style oil pan, which it does, or at least it looks like mine's OEM style. So I don't know. I'm just gonna. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up with 4, and then once I start driving the car around, then I'll check the level of once the transmission fluid gets warm, and then if it's low, then I'll add additional quarts there, probably not exceeding 6, because again, I only pulled out 6 of it, 6 quarts from it. So, and then the transmission fluid that it takes is ATF plus 4 or ATF 4, however you want to say it. And outside of that, that's pretty much it. So I really don't have much else. And this time, for real, we will catch you on the next one.